Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Ask the Sensei, November, I'm sorry, November edition. um, I'm Tish Hicks. I'm the Master Sensei of the VO Dojo. Usually I'm in Burbank, California. Today I am at my parents' house in Arizona. We are joined each month by Dan Leonard, the home studio master, our techno sensei, and one or two of our esteemed voiceover colleagues. This month, we are very, very honored and excited to welcome Roy Samuelson and Colleen O'Connor, who specialize in audio description, which is a whole, it seems it's not a whole new realm. It just seems like it's become a thing that people are knowing about more. And I know you guys specialize in this, so we're excited to get your insights on that and your insights on everything VO. This is a free question and answer hour. So we're here to answer your questions. I'm going to put, if everyone wants to put in where they're calling from in the chat, that's a great way so we get a sense of where you're at, literally. And then I'm going to put up this poll about where you're at on your voiceover journey, which gives us a sense of where you are on your voiceover journey. So the questions, Colleen, let me just read them for you. It's never occurred to me. People tell me I should do it, taken some classes, have a demo, have representation, and booking. So those are the things.
Gotcha.
It looks like we've got a majority of people who have taken some classes, 56%, have a demo, 44%, have representation, 22%, booking, 56%, and people tell me I should do it, 22%. So never occurred to me would be kind of odd to find yourself on a call like this, but there we go. So that is the skinny. Dan, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you are about?
Sure. I'm Dan Leonard, the home studio master. I've been teaching how to properly a home voiceover studio for the last 15 years. I've built thousands of them. And the point is that very few coaches, very few voice talents know exactly what to do. Every voice is different. Every room is different. And it's very important that, you individually decide where's the best place to record is. My stuff is all physical. It's not processing. It's not technology. It's how you do it up front that is really the most important thing and saves you oodles of time and oodles of money and hours of mind-numbing frustration. So anything you have on home voiceover studios, anything at all, I'm here to answer those during this hour.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm like the BBC guy with the kids coming in. My mom's dog just came home. Yay! So that's Dan and Roy and Colleen. You want to tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do, and then I'm sorry, I forgot to tell everyone. We'll be taking your questions in the chat. So if you want to start putting those in, we can be ready to answer them. And so we'll get your questions in the chat, and then we'll bring your voice into the room. We'll call on you. Okay, Roy, Colleen, who'd like to introduce themselves first?
Ugly first. My name's Roy. I'm a tall white man, and I've got a long white sleeve T-shirt and drinking from a Bold Blind Beauty mug. And if you can see it, it says "Ready to Conquer" with a bunch of check marks on it, and the icon of Abby. She's my hero. I'm a voiceover talent that does audio description. I've done a few thousand different projects for streaming titles and feature films. And in addition to coaching, I'm an advocate for making sure that our audiences of audio description have an experience in parity to sighted audiences, and making sure that blind professionals are included at every step, because it makes the work so much better.
Excellent. And Colleen,
Hello.
you are one of those wonderful blind professionals, yes?
Yes. My name's Colleen Connor, and I am a blind professional. I'm a real live blind person. And I got into audio description via the museum world. So the audio described tours that maybe you have taken, where you're back in the day, you've got the cassette tape and the little phone. Now it's normally an app, but tours of different sites and things. I also ended up, I'm a musical theater major, so I have a lot of theater knowledge. So I then ended up in kind of the live theater description. And then someone approached me about starting a company, and they wanted to have a co-teacher who is blind, not just someone to like come in and give some feedback. And so we started audio description training retreats, and I train describers and writers and editors and advocates, teachers, things like that. So I'm kind of the audio description from the ground up. So I teach about the history of it and kind of a base. I teach people how to do it, and then practical practice. And our courses basically get harder as you go on, quote unquote. But yeah, so I train people who write audio description and who voice audio description.
Mm-hmm.
Play does workshops teaching people, primarily voice artists, voicing of audio description. And it's been nice because I've been able to sit in on some of those and kind of consult and give advice to voice artists. So I've recently gotten a lot more into coaching people who do professional voiceover.
Excellent, excellent. So let's see, can either of you give just a nutshell description? I mean, I think we're getting intuitively what audio description is, but how do you describe audio description for someone who may not know anything about it?
Yes, so audio description is, I call it both a science and an art. It is basically a script that is written and can be read either live or pre-recorded. And it is succinct and vivid language that goes in between dialogue and key sound effects in a project, so that people who cannot see what is going on can follow along visually with the film. So it is kind of, as Roy mentioned, it is the best way to get the most equal opportunity at following along visually with what's going on in a film or a show. So it's kind of a voice artist would be voicing things that go in between the key sound effects, dialogue, music cues that help you know what is going on, almost as if it turns the film more like into an audiobook, so to speak.
Interesting. That's a great way to think of it. Excellent. Let's see. Are we ready to take some questions? We can ask. You can ask questions about anything. Obviously, about audio description. Because we have these folks here. Anything technical, Dan is here, and we're all able to answer all questions about our perspective about anything. Let's see where we're at with questions. We'll put them in the chat if you have them. And I guess I'll start with some until we get some. The Q part of the Q&A is super important. Let's see. So just in terms of audio description, how does one get started? Or like what's involved? Like how would one approach getting involved? Like,
Roy, do you
want
to
take the first part?
Yeah.
So one of my favorite parts about audio description is that it really combines a lot, excuse me, it combines a lot of different elements of voiceover. In the podcast, the AD&A, each voice talent that's been interviewed has a different approach, and they've brought in experience from promo, from improv classes, from commercial, from audiobooks. One of the skills that's super important is cold reading, and that seems to be something that comes up consistently a lot. There's definitely a very specific type of nuanced performance. It's not less of a performance, it's more of a high wire act of making sure that it's not too much or too little. Um, and most importantly is feedback, as we keep on emphasizing. And one of the cool parts about Colleen joining our workouts is that she brings a perspective to voice talents that they might not have heard before, because she's listening very specifically because of her experience as an audio description coach and talent herself. It's like there's something that she can hear based on that skill that really narrows in on what people sound like and how that impression affects her. And it's been so cool to see how people are like, really, I'd be good in action films. I thought I was going to be like kids shows. And it's like that kind of adjustment is something that's been incredibly valuable. I'm kind of segueing into the AD training retreats, because those are what Jan and Colleen do. As you've already introduced, get into the nuts and bolts of audio description, and the voice talents that have taken that have improved their own performance because they understand the process flow in a way that's not as limited as just, oh, I get a script and I read it into a mic. Colleen, how's that? Do you want to expand a little
Yeah,
more?
I was gonna say, I tend to highly recommend, and not even just my like, come do my training, but I think it is essential to get a hold of resources. There are books on audio description. You can look things up. You can look at like different research projects. Look at the American Council of the Blind website has a whole section called the Audio Description Project. They have a huge amount of resources, and it looks at the companies who are doing and producing audio description. And so the thing that I tell people is you need to start looking at what this is, and you need to start listening to it. So, on the TV, when you turn on one of the streaming services, Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever you're watching, turn on the audio description. It's normally in the language settings. It's often called either like English video description or descriptive video or audio description. It is now being regulated to legally be, you should call it audio description, but it tends to be titled slightly differently in all the DVD menus. But definitely start listening to it. Start watching things with your eyes shut and just go, what am I missing by not seeing what's going on? What does the dialogue cover already that I wouldn't have to say? What is the sound effect? Do I really need to say the door closes, the phone rings? Or did I just hear that the door closed and the phone rang and someone picked it up? Like, I don't have to say that. So just that process of getting to know what audio description is. And then, when you go to read, having more knowledge of who your audience is and what you can add to a performance that's not, as Roy said, that's not necessarily acting, but is this kind of balance of narrator and staying within the piece. I think what's funny is people will often say as voice artists, like, oh, like, are people gonna, get to know my voice and all kinds of stuff? And I actually say, the highest compliment you can get in audio description is at the end of a film, someone goes, oh my God, I forgot you were even talking. The highest compliment you can get is like, I didn't even notice, like, you were just part of the movie. I guess you did great. I don't know. So it's kind of an interesting art form.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it also people, you don't have to be visually impaired to use this. Some people started listening to they'll catch up on their favorite TV shows while they're driving in the car, or, you know, making dinner or something. You leave the room, but you can still hear, and they have the audio description on, and you're not really missing anything. So.
Yeah. Well, it's just expanding my imagination of what the nuances that are required. And I love that it's all about you, in that you're there to make the story come to life, but it's not about you. It's about the experience that the person that you're sharing this with. And it serves so many people, right? It serves, obviously, if you have a career in audio description, it serves you, it serves the listener, but it also serves the filmmakers and the creators of the content that you're sharing with more people. It's really cool. Let's see, here's a question. Dawn, do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Yeah, okay. So I'm just wondering, a technicality, when you book a job, and I'm thinking with COVID, this has probably changed a lot. Do you typically go into the studio to record, or are you recording more at home? And if you do record at home, how is the director involved to give you feedback?
Great, I'll take this. And Colleen, please let me know if your students have shared some more additional stuff. It is the Wild West right now on many different counts. Specifically, as far as the technique goes, to your point, there are companies that are recording in COVID safe areas. There are some companies that are doing remote recording. For those specific remote recordings, there are some that are project based, in the sense that they give a script and you get access to a specific type of software, and you have a deadline of getting through those 200 cues in the next, 1 hour show or whatever. There are also, which I prefer, a Source Connect, where there's a director and an engineer that are guiding you through the steps. One of the advantages of that, obviously, is that we as voice talents can focus our intention on what we're saying and how we're saying it, how we bring the script to life. And that's that. I love that you use the word nuance, Tish. I use that nuance in the sense of so many aspects of audio description. It's a really nuanced, and specifically with the intent that you bring to the words. It's, as Colleen said, going along with the story so that the spotlight is on the story. Finding that is something that the director and even the engineer can catch. If there's an element of the story that the director might know is important that comes in later. For example, if a character is reintroduced in a surprising way, that character might need just a slight new emphasis when you say that character's name, versus just reading something that, she jumps out of the cash register. If you hear that out of context, it would be like, well, the cash register is the most important thing because that's weird. But if everybody's been playing in the cash register and suddenly this character appears out of nowhere, then it's the character that gets the emphasis. And that's something that, as voice talents, we can catch, but if we miss it, that's what the director is there for. And also the engineer for placing and such. So it really runs the gamut with remote recording. I've experienced recording series on my own, and I have a sense of where they've been, which is helpful, but it's still not perfect. I always like it when a director's there. It relieves a lot of the pressure. If you've done audiobooks, you know the difference between doing an audiobook on your own and having a quality control person who does it for you. And you're like, oh my God, how did I miss that word? Or something like that. I think there's a similar sort of, we're aware up to a certain point, but there's got to be stuff unconsciously that just slips underneath our abilities. But I'm kind of meandering around. Colleen, do you want to add a little more to that?
Yeah, I think, exactly what Roy said. I think a lot of times with COVID, what happened was that, and I'm sure to our technical expert, the home studio became a giant thing because a lot of people weren't recording in studios as much. I know several companies that just almost don't do it at all anymore. So what happened with that was of people who do voice, even myself, you have to learn how to record it yourself and sound good and do at least some minor technical things. And so you start wearing a lot of different hats. And as Roy mentioned, it doesn't, it can take away from your ability to just focus on your art and your interpretation and, what you're doing. Software is kind of all over the map. As Roy said, a lot of companies have actually created their own software. So you're almost given access to, you go in and there's like, the image of the video playing, the script is a bunch of cues on the side, and then you record almost like you're dubbing or doing subtitles. So it's very, it's very, Roy mentioned as well with cold reading or with, it's taxing. It's quite, if you're trying to do audio description well, it is tiring. It's exhausting.
So it's got a dynamic of working to picture then.
Yeah.
That's the skill sets that you need.
And or you're looking at time cues for sure, because you have to fit in this amount of seconds between that person's line and that person's line. So you might read a line and then realize you need to read that faster because you stepped on someone's line. So it's, you get better at it over time, but starting out with AD is definitely gonna be, it's a little clunky when you first start, because you're like, wait, I'm stepping on all the lines and like, wait, I have to fit within 0.2 seconds. That's insane. I'm not gonna be able to do that. So
that's probably why promo people are really good at it. Like you have those skill sets of fitting in right
yeah.
in the energy. And is a usual team like a talent, a director, and an engineer? Is that a usual setup when you have like obviously everything in voiceover now has like your deluxe going to the spa version, like when we can go to the studio and there's an engineer and there's a director and the clients are on the line, right? That's the full enchilada. And then there's like, hey, get me a sandwich, make sure you actually prepare the whole meal, but just do it by yourself. That's more what it is. So is there there's different levels of that? Like at the most supported level, a session would include a talent director and an engineer, and then you'd have to I guess I'm getting a sense of what we should expect, right?
Roy, I would field that to you as someone who submits way more than I do. So
I love your analogy, and it does go from the enchilada down to the single chip as far as delivery goes. And there, to Colleen's point, as far as the timing goes, there are some writers that I've really gotten to the point where there's a sense of what they do. For example, there are some writers that just want to cram everything in, and it's overwritten. It's too much. But that's not my job necessarily to say it's too much. My job is to do the script as written. And so if you go back to the 80s Micro Machine by Galoob, or the guy that just like speeds through legal to the whole thing, it's sometimes it feels like that. And being able to deliver that in a way that's clear and enunciated and understandable without stepping on the other characters that are speaking, it can be really rewarding. And bringing any kind of script to the best of you as a narrator's ability is part of our job.
Also, I'm the one poking the writers to go do better. Please hand the voice artist something that's not a tongue twister in the middle of a thing. So you'll also get very different writers. As Roy said, there are some people who are flowery, who are long-winded. There are some people who are really bare bones description. And so it's always nice if you can have a writer where you're like, oh, this is well written. Like I'm understanding the story. Like this is fun. And then, regardless, you do have to do your job and get paid for your job. So the client or the, for instance, if you're working for Netflix, they have a style sheet and this is the way you got to do it. And, I think, Roy, you can correct me, but I think you have very little input in the end as far as, oh, I think you should change this because it's bad, correct?
Correct. And I take liberties. Can I give an example?
Yeah.
This is mildly graphic. There was It was a series I was working on. It was set in the 1980s, and it was predominantly gay characters. And the writer had written, the nurse inspects him. And what was actually happening was it was a male, full frontal, and the nurse was inspecting his penis, and it was an AIDS play. That's relevant for a few points. Our blind gay audiences would want to know that that was a full frontal scene. That's important. They also, for the story, need to know that as this is about AIDS, that that's what the nurse was inspecting. So I took a liberty and I just changed it. And they didn't flag it. I got away with it. I got to say penis. My point is not that I said the word. My point is that based on the story, based on the context of who the audience was, it was pretty clearly written by a straight person, because I don't think a gay person would have picked up on the importance of that. That's a really graphic example, but it's important to know that these companies are turning around, churning out sometimes so much content that it is possible that they overlook it. And there is that sweet spot where if a character is clearly named one name and it's being said as another, I'll change it. And if they don't flag it, they don't flag it. And it's like, great. So I don't mean to suggest to be cavalier. There's definitely relationships that are built. And I found that talking with the directors and the people who hire me before and after, and checking in and saying, are you comfortable when that happens? There could be a situation where the scripts need to be exactly what's being said. And so for me to do something that cavalier and change a line with a certain company, that could get them, they could lose a whole client, thousands of projects. So it is risky. And that's why I think the communication is really important, to be able to understand, here's the process, here's how you need things done. And I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, and she's got this expression, what does done look like? And there's something really special about that. I think that applies to, I've used this specifically in audio description and in other voiceover jobs. It's like, you know, I value punctuality, but maybe one client really values something else more. And it's like, they want to know that I can do something else besides being on time. They could care less about me being on time as long as I fill in the blank. And finding that out ahead of time, my assumptions don't get in the way of what their needs are.
Interesting. I wanted to go up to a question that there's a natural segue here, and then we'll go to some tech questions for Dan, and then I think we can ask some tech questions in terms of what's required for audio description as well. Christina, can you ask your question just in terms because I think we started to touch on what the scope of the genre is.
Yeah, it seems like it's a lot of film and a lot of TV. So it seems like there's a great need for this service. And I'm just wondering how frequent a need is there? What's the, yeah.
And before you guys answer that question, I'd like to get a sense of the folks that are here, who has done audio description, or who is exploring it. It's, if anyone's done it or exploring, or it's new, I'd love to get a sense of that. Yeah. I guess we could do visual, but most people are off. So, and ironically, right? Okay. So can you talk about a little bit about the scope, and then we'll go to the tech questions with Dan.
Oh, Colleen's going to rock this answer. Right now on the audio description project, there's over 7,000 titles that have audio description for film and TV. And keep in mind that a title can be one series. So those series that have dozens or hundreds of episodes, that's considered one title. So one of the cool things is the streaming services are starting to embrace this in a way that's, you know, they're really starting to deliver. So, but beyond film and TV, Colleen?
Yeah, so audio description can be everywhere. It is legally required to have it. So it is now, and those of us who have sued in order to get it, Netflix originally, and now they, of course, try and have 100% of their content described. Suing Hamilton on Broadway because they didn't have live description. So a lot of things happen, unfortunately. Lawsuits are a thing, but because it's required, you have audio description for a lot of different things. There's commercials now being audio described. I have people who come from Hewlett Packard, like HP, the computer company, and all of their training videos for the use of this particular printer have to be audio described. Government campaigns, websites, any sort of media content that you come out with. Education is a big one. So there's a whole few companies that do audio description for education, for the classroom. There is live theater, live broadcast television, and then there is the pre-recorded, which is, your standard TV show, film, a lot of documentaries, independent films, all those things are looking to be audio described. So they're looking for writers, they're looking for voice artists. And I think the main thing is what we are passionate about, and I know what Roy is passionate about, is the quality. There is a lot of bad audio description out there because people don't know what it is. The production staff doesn't know what audio description is. So in post-production, they just go, can you do this thing? It's for blind people. I don't know. You just read the stage directions. So it's getting better. People are becoming more aware of it, but it can be almost everywhere. And there's different animals within description. So you could be someone who does museum exhibits and art installations, and that's kind of your jam. You could do education, and that's kind of your jam. And then you've got film and TV voice artists, and then people who are very good at live. They just figure out, you know what, I can kind of see something a couple times, and then I'm going to describe it in real time while looking at it to people who are listening in the audience.
That's cool. Wow. So it really is everywhere, which is fantastic. Well, let's go to some tech questions, and then I have an idea for something that might be fun to do since we have both of you here. So Dan, we've got a couple of questions. Let's see, we've heard Don's voice in the room. Monique H, do you want to ask the tech question? Are you here, Monique?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. So my question is piggybacking off of Dawn's question, because I'm new to the old world. I haven't really taken any workshops just yet. I'm still exploring the industry and the nuances of it. So my question is really about how to get started truly as a beginner. So I have my laptop, I'm zooming in with you guys now, but what are some of your recommendations for software or equipment such as microphones, soundproofing? I'm in an apartment, so how should I get started that way without, like you said, going above and beyond with expenses, since I'm just a beginner so far?
Right. Well, I can, I'll cover this best I can. Most important is to start off with, you need to go against the human tendency to overthink things. It's a lot easier than it sounds. If you go on Facebook or any voiceover forums, you will see it is a sewer of misinformation. A bunch of people who are experts in one studio, their own. They'll say, this is what I do, this is what I do. And it doesn't work that way. You have to start off with the basics. You need to have, for starters, I can see you, so we know you have a computer, Mac or PC. Okay. Yeah.
That was a question mark.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
PC. So.
PC. Okay. Personally, I think, you have what you have and you use what you use until you can move on to something else. PCs are not what I would call voiceover friendly, unless you're a real good computer geek. And
no.
Yeah, so Macs are great because they're more intuitive, they're more reliable. The software that you can use on them is, there's a little less of it, but it's all much better. It's, you plug it in and it works is primarily the thing. Whenever people call me, say, I've got a problem with this, I've got a problem with that. Are you Mac or PC? Oh, well, I'm using Windows. Well, there's your problem right there. Okay. So, because you've got to run through all these different menus, and with a Mac, you really don't have to do that. There are three basics you got to cover, and what type of equipment or the specifics of equipment is not necessarily all that important at this point, because you're just starting and you're just learning. Okay. Most important is the acoustics of the room in which you record. Nothing is more important than that. The majority of the quality of your audio is based on the acoustical signature of the room you're in, and that constitutes two things: sound coming in and sound reverberating back. So you have to isolate yourself really, really well. If you have a walk-in closet full of clothes, you just save yourself about $6,000. That's a great thing to have. You can isolate yourself by closing the door behind you, and clothes are an amazing sound absorber. There's a little bit, more to it than that, but it's a big help. Anytime I walk into somebody's apartment or house and they've got a walk-in closet, I go, let's go in here. let's work out of here. The second part of that is, how do you prevent sound from coming in if you don't have a walk-in closet? You got to find a really, really quiet room. Okay. And if you don't have a quiet room, that requires more expense and a lot of other things that, if you're just starting out, I wouldn't say invest in that first. There are certain things you can do to try and mitigate it, like working at 3 a.m. Things along those lines. But there is a difference between soundproofing and sound treatment. They are two totally different things. So if someone says, oh, you got to use soundproofing foam, you can take that foam and shove it down their throat, because it's not soundproofing foam. There's no such thing. It's foam is to prevent reflection. To get soundproof, you need mass or an extremely quiet room in the back of your house where there's no traffic noise, or you're not in the landing pattern or takeoff pattern of some airport, or if you're in Chicago next to the L. Things along those lines. Second is mic technique, which goes into this question you have about what microphone to get. You do not want to get a cheap microphone, yet you do not want to spend $1,000 on a microphone. If you're just starting out, there are some very nice microphones that will be very simple for you to use. I know that Tish has a relationship with our friends at Epigee Digital. They make a really nice digital USB mic. It's very small, very easy to use. Oh, and there's a picture of it.
This is my setup. I've been traveling this week, and I discovered these velvet covered hangers, 5 on each side, 1 in between, and my Apogee hype mic hung up on the bar with the clothes or whatever's in the closet has been golden. I did a session that like got popped right into the commercial the other day. So yeah, the Apogee hype mic it's a high-end USB mic, but the
Apogee mics have a very similar sound to, say, a Sennheiser 416, which is $1,000 mic and is pretty much the industry standard for, but it's very, very sensitive and not very forgiving. You've got to use proper mic technique, which was item number 2 that I was talking about. And that is, you see how I have my mic here. It is at the height of the bridge of my nose. There is room underneath and behind for your copy. And by doing this, I can go Peter Piper, picked a peck of pickled peppers all day long, Jeffrey Gilbank, and get rid of that pop screen. It's still there. You don't need a pop screen. A pop screen is to prevent Celine Dion from spitting on a $10,000 microphone. Just because of people wearing headphones next to their microphone like this and talking into a pop screen doesn't necessarily mean that's a picture of someone doing voiceover. That's generally a singer. Do not get a dynamic mic. I think one of the things that people miss is the idea of how loud you have to be to do voiceover. Well, voiceover is conversational, and singers and bands are loud. So, if you buy a microphone that is really sensitive, that's great, like a studio condenser mic, which is what you need, which is what I'm using. But you don't get a dynamic mic. A lot of idiots are recommending SM7Bs and Electro Voice RE20s, which are these podcasting mics. They're broadcasting mics. Believe it or not, they were originally designed to be bass drum mics. So you give an idea of how much sound pressure levels they can take. Great for singers. They sing loud. But because we talk at a conversational tone, we want to have a good studio condenser mic. The Epigee Hype's a great starter mic because it will teach you setting proper levels, which is item number 3, which I'll get to in a second. Or you get a microphone like a Rode NT1A or an AT2035, something that's not going to break the bank and will work for you. If you get a microphone that's not a direct USB microphone, you can get a regular studio condenser mic, and then you'll need a digital interface like a Scarlett 2i2, which is this guy over here, which, by the way, I'm not using. Plugged into a pile of things, something like this. And this is the thing that takes the analog sound of your microphone, amplifies it, and turns it into the ones and zeros that your computer can understand, and turns into the digital and graphic representation of what we see as sound, which gives us the ability to edit it. So, and you don't want to spend a fortune on that. Do not buy an Apollo Twin. Do not listen to people who say, well, this has all these great features. They're all features you don't need. Everything you could possibly need is in the software that you can get. And good software is not hard to get. You can get Audacity, which is free. There are, Twisted Wave, if you're on a Mac, is a great program. Adobe Audition requires a little bit of knowledge about what you're doing. So that's why a lot of people are using Audacity. And I know a lot of audiobook editors, that's all they use. And it's very easy to use. And it has this incredibly long manual that you can read. But it really is a matter of listening to it more than anything else and playing with it and learning how it works. And that's really important. So get the right microphone, but don't overspend on it. The last thing, so we can get back to talking about audio description, is setting proper levels. And nobody seems to understand this, especially a bunch of coaches whose names I won't mention, but they're not in the room. Setting levels is a matter of proper modulation. You don't want it too soft. You don't want it too loud. Fortunately, they have a thing called a VU meter. We used to use one of these things back in radio days, but now it's all digital. Simplified, if you look at a VU meter, it's called the input meter, always in the green, always in the yellow, with an occasional intermittent flash of red. But if it's only in the green, it's too low. If it's constantly in the red, it's too hot. You want to keep it in that range. I could give you the numbers, but then you'll go, what was that?
One of the cool things working with the Hype mic is that there's it flashes red, green, or yellow as you're speaking. So you can see it go to red and go like, oh, I'll redo that take. I'm just noticing that here. Yeah.
So that's the most important thing about what you need to get when you start is those particular, taking into consideration those 3 items.
And what I love about working with Dan is, and this is how we work at the dojo too, is do you notice he didn't say, well, here, Monique, you do this, you do that, you do this. What we just laid out is a framework of thinking, right? And so I think for a beginning setup, depending on what your noise situation is, you can get a pretty solid setup for about $500. So you want to budget, what you have to get a good setup that will serve you, and then take it from there. But the most important thing is, how do you take these concepts and then, now you can go like, okay, if there's questions, I saw a little question about, is it a condenser mic? Is it a dynamic mic? That's information you can go look up and understand. But the idea here is, what is the framework to start thinking about your setup, right? And then
Thank
you
you.
can ask questions like, what about this? And someone can say yes, or yeah, good. And then just really understanding that there's a lot of opinions and there's a lot of things, and you're going to have a lot of mics, and or you might have just a few. I've had my AT 4040 as my workhorse. I've got a 416. I've got this one. So it's the beginning of the journey, and you'll get something and it'll be awesome, and then you'll get other things.
Yes, yes.
hopefully
Thank
that's helpful.
you.
Now, how about if we segue, Colleen and Roy, what are some of the tech things that you would advise in terms of this specific work? What are your setups like? What do you find most impactful? How do you edit? Like what's useful?
Dan really covered a lot. I think there's another element of consistency. For example, when pickups come, it's probably pretty obvious that you have the same setup. So for example, if someone's traveling from one place to another, to let the studio know ahead of time that, hey, I'm going to be traveling and I'm going to be in a different location. So if you need pickups, it would actually be to your benefit to turn down that job if they say it's really important, because if your pickups don't match, it really stands out.
Oh, then
Yeah,
something else.
So, but Dan covered so much already with the technical
it's not
side.
it's not really different. There's nothing really specific that
Well,
would be having a good setup for any voiceover.
Yeah, it's like the typical stuff, the quiet, if you've done audiobooks and you have a fast internet, that should get you through.
Oh, cool. We've got a couple more minutes. Since you're both here, I would love, and Colleen, you were talking about there's good audio description and there's bad audio description. So I'm assuming that Roy is pretty good at what he does, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering, Roy, could you do an audio description of like my setting or Dan's setting? Like just what would you do to describe what's going on here? And maybe I can, continue to teach or something, and then you could describe. I don't know. Is that too spur of the moment?
No, it's fine, but I'm a voice talent. I read scripts. Like I take Colleen's students, and like I can do it because it's like I have written scripts. It's not my focus, but for Dan, he's a bald white man with dark glasses and what looks like a handlebar mustache. Tish, you've got and also a bright shirt on with a logo in the back with headphones with VOBS. And then Tish, you've got what looks like a traditional room from a house with a red pullover, wearing glasses, and shoulder length hair that's kind of parted on the side. It's the important thing, and Colleen, please expand on this, because I'm stepping outside of my wheelhouse here. It's brushstrokes. It's giving this sense. It doesn't have to go into 16 paragraphs of detail. Like we could take a whole bunch of time to describe an album cover, but when you've got 5 seconds in between lines of dialogue, it's going to be kind of hard. Colleen?
Yeah. So audio description is there's a few like kind of traditional key settings and sayings, which is like less is more. So when you listen to a scene, it's like I was saying before, you want to listen to more audio description. Also, when you listen to a scene, you say, okay, what do I already know from the music? If the music isn't there, okay, what do I already know from the dialogue? What did the dialogue cover? Was there something funny in the scene? Do I need to make sure that I get the visual aspects of this joke across? Okay, so there's a joke in it. I'm going to need to do a joke. Okay, who was there? Anyone introduced? In a nutshell, what happened in this scene? That's the most important. Now, this won't be my description, but I might say, okay, in this scene, she falls in love with him. That's the nuts and bolts of the scene. So what do I need to convey that is completely visual, that is not condescending or explaining what's going on, or when you're writing, having an opinion. You don't want to say, for instance, you don't want to say Mary is sad. You would say Mary is crying.
Mm-hmm.
If you had more time, you might say Mary has tears streaming down her face. She grabs a Kleenex.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as a lot of very few lines of audio description are full sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And
see that.
Yeah, so it's a lot of, there's a lot that goes into it. And it's kind of different formulas that you can, watch or listen to a scene and go, okay, what do I need to get across?
Here's an interesting question. As someone who is blind, how do you do audio description?
So I tend to do a lot of quality control for people.
So you make sure that it's working. So someone else sees it.
I can give people, feedback. I've written description before. If I have the whole script and if I have contact with if I'm working more with the people who are doing it, thus I would have all of the stage directions and the access to the writer and things like that. And as far as what I normally do, I can write description, but I prefer to collaborate with people and edit and make sure what they're doing is
total sense, because that makes complete sense. That's cool. Let's see, we're just coming up in time. Why don't we do this? Why don't we have everybody share or we're coming up to the end of the hour. And as I said, at the beginning, we can hang out and do breakout rooms for a little bit afterward. But as we come in, why don't we have everyone share how we can stay in touch? If you have other questions, Dan, you want to let people know what you're up to and how they can stay in touch with you?
Absolutely. If you go to homevoiceoverstudio.com, boy, talk about an easy one to remember. Homevoiceoverstudio.com. You'll see a list of my services and how I work. One of the things you can do, if you already have a home voiceover studio and you want to make sure it sounds right, I have at the bottom of my my webpage, there's a specimen collection container. Click on that. It is a Dropbox. There are specific instructions on how I want the audio. I want it raw, and I want to hear what your studio sounds like, and I will analyze that for $25, and I will make any recommendations if it's fairly minor what's going on. And I teach this, and I do consultations, and I can teach you from soup to nuts how to do this, so you won't have to think about it, because you want to be a voice actor, not an audio engineer. It's not a requirement. You learn it as you go. But I'll teach you the basics to get you going.
And also you work with people individually on their space, which I think is a game changer.
Right here in LA, if you're here in Southern California, I do make house calls, but I don't have a little black bag.
Excellent. And Colleen and Sam, I think, or Sam, who's Sam? Colleen and Roy. Drunk again so early. I'm not really drunk. Colleen and Roy, how best to keep in touch with you? And I think everything's in the chat here. Anything that you'd like to share?
I got something. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's really important that especially people that are interested in getting into audio description, that they explore the different options. There's a website, if you have a Chrome browser, called udescribe.org. It's listing thousands of YouTube videos that blind and low vision people want described. It's a great way to jump in. It's a little clunky, but you can figure it out. The audio description discussion page on Facebook. When I teach my classes, I refer people there because it's a great resource to find other writers. If you're not interested in writing, and teaming up with someone would be a great thing. There are so many opportunities for audio description. People have explored gardening, weather reports for the television, describing what the images are for a weather report. Museum exhibits has already been mentioned, but think about things that you're passionate about and what you already do maybe outside of voiceover and how that could have audio description implications. There's some really great things that are happening there, and we go into detail on that in the workout. But having something that you already do and presenting it to our audience gives a few benefits. It provides more access to things that haven't had access before, and it leads the way for more things like that for other people to do. It gives you an opportunity to share what your voice sounds like. It's really a win-win-win. And also, you know, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. There's a lot of different opportunities for coaching, but do study, whether it's an improv class or a voiceover class or VO Dojo opportunities or wherever you go, that this is an ongoing process. That as a voice talent myself, I'm extremely proud of the work that I put out, but I'm also extremely proud of the coaching that I still get to this day. And it's imperative that that continues just in the same way that a professional athlete is constantly training at the gym to keep those muscles sharp.
Excellent. Amen, brother. Colleen, I think Jeffrey put the link to 80 training
Yes.
retreats. Is there anything else that you'd like to?
I had mentioned if you, the audio description project is a very good place to go. And I believe, Roy, they are now adp.org, yeah?
I think it's in the chat, adp.acb.org. Yeah.
.acb.org. That's a great resource. And then if you want to get in touch with me, adtrainingretreats@gmail.com. All the stuff is AD training retreats or some form of. So.
Finder. All roads lead to Colleen.
Yes.
Okay, and then at the VO Dojo, we are a full training program that guides from I don't know to working pro. So wherever you are on your journey, we're here to take you and your career all the way. We are enrolling for our intro classes. You should do voiceover into January. We do this at the beginning of every month. The first Wednesday of every month, there's a Q&A. Next month, Natasha Marshenko from V123 Pro will be talking about pay to plays. And we also have our full training program, which is called From Mystery to Mastery. So if you really want to go in depth and find a place to either take your journey further or start your journey, we'd love to talk with you about that. And if you are a working pro, we have the nth degree working pro workouts and focus action forums. And we also have our clubs, our VO Dojo Pro Fight Clubs, which we do several times a month, bring top-notch talent together with the decision makers who hire us. Coming up on Friday is our dear friend of the dojo, Jason Lanier White, is going to be talking about the very elusive world of looping. So nobody talks about looping. It's like the holy grail. Our contacts in the chat, www.thevodojo.com. And you can also schedule time for a free 15-minute voiceover once-over call. Someone from the team will talk with you, get a sense of where you're at and where you'd like to be and how we can help you in any way. So thank you all for being here. If you want to hang out and talk a little bit more in a breakout room, just stay put. Dan, Colleen, Roy, if you have a few minutes to stay and chat with people, we can put you in different rooms. And if you don't, thank you so much for being here. And Jeffrey, thank you for keeping everything rolling and together. And we will see you next month. Thank you so much. And just hang out if you want to chat a little bit more with anybody. Yeah.
I'll say I am not able to stay, but you guys know how to get in touch with me. So good luck.
I'm so sorry. I just gotta, all the best to everybody.
No worries. Thanks so much, guys. talk to you soon. Are you able to hang out, Dan? No, he's got to roll. Okay, well, why don't we just stay here and chat then? No breakout rooms required. Yay. Let's see who ends up. Hey. So, hey, it's kind of like the after party. Hi, Kat.
Hi.
This is Kat. She's one of our Dojo senseis. Yeah. So, how was that? What's on everyone's mind? What thoughts do you have? What stuck out?
I don't know. I know that this is something that's definitely interests me to continue exploring further. I've been trying to find, I guess, my right niche in all this, but I'm always like, looking to see what other fields may be a good fit. And I don't know, that this one appeals to me, especially because I'm often advocating locally for people with disabilities, having a disability myself, and it just seems like a great fit to explore further,
Oh. What is this sounds good. So what's your disability? So really, what's yours? Is it okay to ask, and would you feel comfortable sharing what that is? It's an intriguing question around here.
I have a few different disabilities. I have a brain issue, neurological issue that has issues with my muscles. Sometimes I can get seizures and things like that. And it's unpredictable. Muscle issues, sometimes it can affect my speech. So it really helps if I can have control of when I can be doing work, as opposed to just, your 9-to-5 job type thing.
Right.
And also, especially amidst the pandemic, having to take immunosuppressive drugs, it really helps to be able to stay home and do work if possible, or even in the studio, it's just you in that room typically. So it's not as bad. But yet, being an extrovert, I like that I can still reach out and help people in different ways. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And Arthur and Eugene and Deanna, tell us about you, and what questions and thoughts do you have?
I have a question, if it's okay. I'm new in this, under a year, but it's I guess it's technical, but I'm really having a hard time with it. And that is mouth noise. And I understand like taking it out and versus not creating it in the first place is what and the proximity to the mic, and obviously the mic really picks up. So it's like, so the question is there a way to learn through that you don't create them? My mouth will sound, it's the wetness part. I understand pops and clicks, but it's that surface.
More excess wetness. Because sometimes it's too juicy and sometimes it's too smacky, right? Like people have different, and
some days it doesn't seem to be a problem. I'll get a real clear thing. And other days I was like, I just can't get rid of that. I don't know. Any suggestion? I know stay hydrated, but it doesn't seem to work, well enough.
I am gonna ask something here. I'm gonna bring up something, and you feel free to tell me if this is wrong, but sometimes it's almost like I need to dehydrate myself. And I don't mean make yourself parched, I mean, like I will drink lots earlier in the day, but if I keep drinking while I'm doing a read, it will make it so much worse. And I know they say bring water with you, do stuff, but for me, I don't know what it is, but the smacking sound suddenly just amplify as soon as I take sips of water during my read.
But does staying away from the mic help, or no? You still want to be in a good. Well,
you need to be here, and then
you need to be in there.
To be like in the area that is the thing. And then sometimes then how, I think it's just a matter of like exploring of like, oh, that sounds less slurpy, or wow, that sounds really super slurpy if I do that. Or sometimes I have a lot of sibilants, so sometimes I'll have to be really aware of, wow, if I'm saying she sells seashells by the seashells, look at, there's like a whole other little symphony of things going on there, which is part of my voice print. But sometimes you don't want to, sound like a whistle. And so then I'll have to just kind of calibrate how I'm making the sound and be like, did you notice that I just did something a little bit different with my tongue that mitigated the S sound a little bit. I just kept, so, finding out what does sound less slurpy. If you know it's a slurp, then what is, any thoughts, Kat, or anyone else?
Yeah, I do. I'm a little skeptical when people say their mouths are too wet, because usually mouth noise comes from a dry mouth, even if it's a wet sound.
That's what I've heard. Yes.
So especially, I like to include myself in this group. When we are middle-aged and older, the older we get, the drier we get in general, and B, a lot of medications have a side effect of giving you mouth noise. So look up, if you're on any prescriptions, look up what the side effects are. You might actually, or even just Google about it. You'll probably find that could be the cause of it. I am a big fan of Biotine, and it's just glycerin. So there's glycerin swabs you can put in your mouth before a big important session, but for daily use, I swish with this every day before I begin recording, or my recordings would be a mess. I still have to edit out a little bit of smacking. Caffeine really needs to be limited, especially before you're recording. Biotine.
And dairy.
I know. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's addictive, and so it's good for you,
especially
like coffee
with cream in it, right?
Yeah, and coffee and tea. I just realized I'm on my wrong mic, so maybe this will sound a little better. Coffee and tea are really good for you, and especially matcha, and they're all antioxidants. So don't cut it out, but like be mindful of how recently before you start recording. I don't do any caffeine on the day of a live session, which right now is like all the time. So I'm having very, very little caffeine in my diet. But yeah, those are some tips. Again, right before recording, people have good experiences with eating an apple or drinking apple juice. Potato chips, like something about the salt and the crunchy dryness of it can pull some of the stuff out. So yeah, experiment with either salty or sour things right before. Different tips work for different people. And I'm a big proponent of this too. This isn't really for your mouth so much as for your vocal cords too. It's semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. So you like sing through a straw, talk through a straw, warm up through a straw, and it really gets your pipes ready to speak.
Catherine, may I ask, Biotine there, I haven't tried the mouthwash yet. I've only used the sprays. But I find if you're doing a short segment, like a little commercial bit or something like that, works great, but it only lasts like 5 or 10 minutes before it all comes back again. So it seems like really expensive to just keep squirting that the whole, like it just doesn't, it's not effective for the long term. And I'm just curious how long you find that the mouthwash works for you.
Maybe an hour. Like if I usually get a couple auditions done and then I go do stuff. And then when I come back to my mic, I have to use it again. Cause it's just coating your mouth with glycerin. And as soon as you've eaten all of that glycerin, you're going to have to do it again.
Yeah. Okay. I might try the mouthwash then, because even an hour is way better than say 5-10 minutes. So.
Yeah. I record every day. One of these lasts me 2 months, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas the spray I have is about this size. So
yeah. And the toothpaste too might help as well. I use the toothpaste and the mouth rinse.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. Eugene, Deanna, how are you? Who are you? What thoughts do you have in our after party? What came up for you today? What are you thinking about? If you have any thoughts, I'd love to meet you. If you have anything you'd like to share. Yeah.
It's too noisy in their environment.
Jeffrey, our team member, who lives in Bedford Stuy, and sometimes we're like, oh my God, what is going on at your place? Reggae bands and sirens. It's like the anti voiceover place. Where are you located, Pamela?
Where am I located? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Saskatchewan, Canada.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
Yeah. I think that's the only Canadian in the group today.
Yeah. And Arthur, I see you're in California. Yeah, cool. So what are you guys up to? So Arthur, you just said you're starting out, or in the beginnings of the journey. Yeah.
Yes, I've done one audiobook that I got paid for on ACX. I've got gigs up on Fiverr, also one gig, but it's a lot of practicing, studying. I got some coaching going on. It's a little tricky exactly what kind of coaching. I have a friend that's been in radio locally. I just connected with for most of her life. yeah, trying to find my voice, trying to find the direction. I love the information of the day. I was unaware of audio description, so it was nice. Just trying to organize what's the next step, how to practice each day. With, I get a little overwhelmed with all
It's
the
really,
aspects.
it's really easy to get overwhelmed. It's a lot of what what the whole dojo sort of came out of. I had my years of experience, and then it became time like, oh, how do you share this, right? So we crossed the threshold into teaching, and it sort of evolved into like, well, what do people actually need? And finding that place where you can go like, oh, okay, here's what I'm focused on now. Here's my next set of questions. What's next? But like we were talking about at the beginning, like, how do you create frameworks of how are you thinking about it? Because it is overwhelming. There's so much, I mean, it
I think
sounds
we
so
have a
like, oh,
mutual
you're back
friend.
What's
I
up?
found out about you through a mutual friend, or she's a friend of mine. I don't know how well you know her, but Ansley Weller. Do you know Ansley?
Oh, I'm not sure I know
Ansley,
Ansley.
or she might be going by Ansley.
Oh, is she married
Morgan,
to?
Ansley Morgan.
You know Ansley Morgan, yes.
She's
Yes,
a good
I
friend
do
of
know
mine.
that.
She told me about you, and then I found Voice Dojo, and yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. And how about you, Pamela? What's on your mind next? I love what you're talking about. How do you let this be how it serves you, and then how can you serve others? Like that's everything.
Yeah.
About and the reason that my ears perked up is so excited to have Roy and Colleen here, because we are really interested in creating a place where people who have disabilities or different brains or things that they're dealing with, Kat's a little on the spectrum, so we're working with that. We've worked with dyslexic people, but Kat's also an adaptive yoga teacher, so there's like, oh, this is such a good thing for anyone who has something
Does
that
she do online yoga? She
I'm
does,
not
right?
sure. I mean, she's
I'm
busy.
sure I met her
I'm not
before,
sure
and I'm like, that must be where I met her before, because I do the online yoga stuff too, as in like a participant. I know nothing about teaching it. Oh, you're freezing, I think. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. But what's yeah. Like it sounds like you're in the mix. It sounds like you got things going.
Yeah. I started with live theater, and I am involved in getting a local group started up that's helping to bring more diverse content for more diverse actors and audiences. So that's really important to us. Diverse in many spectrums, LGBTQ, BIPOC, ND, all of that. So that's really our goal set. And just knowing that I keep ending up in these groups where I'm advocating for this stuff, it only makes sense that I'm also doing it in the VO work as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's one of the other things I love about the dojos. Like we have such diversity. We have, people who are sophomores in college, people who are retired judges, and kind of a little bit
right. Well, there's so many more
cool.
stories to tell, that are different, that are worth hearing, and so many more people need to be hearing stories as well, so yeah.
And I just had an audition this morning that was like for the army, and it was really cool looking down. Like I had to really read through all the descriptions, and I was like, okay, that's not me, because that's an African American woman. That's not me.
Yes.
That's a Pacific Islander man. That's not me. That's this. And then there was the white lady there, so I did the white lady part. It was really cool to be like, yep, that's how things are going. So
yeah exactly.
Yeah.